She sat alone at the defense table. No lawyer beside her, no files in front of her, no water in the glass. Just her. Wearing a simple gray dress she had bought from a second-hand store the week before because her husband had frozen every bank account she had access to, and she had not wanted to appear in court looking like someone who could not take care of herself. She had been awake since 4 in the morning, not from anxiety, from calculation. From the specific focused energy of a woman who has decided that today is the day everything changes. Her name was Simone, and across the aisle from her, her husband of 11 years sat in his chair like a man who had already won. He was wearing the suit, the charcoal one with the subtle pinstripe that he saved for his most important meetings. His lawyer, the most expensive divorce attorney in Atlanta, sat beside him with a leather briefcase that probably cost more than Simone's car. His lawyer leaned over and said something. Her husband smiled, not a warm smile. The smile of a man who has arranged everything in advance and is simply waiting for the performance to conclude. "Look at her," her husband said. His voice carried. He had always known how to project. It was one of the things she had loved about him once. She came here without a lawyer, without anything. She really thought she could stand against me. His attorney placed a hand on his arm. "Easy, Marcus. Let the process do the work." "I'm just saying," Marcus replied, not lowering his voice at all. "She signed the prenup. I froze the accounts. She has nothing. This is going to take 20 minutes and then I'm free." Simone heard every word. She did not react. She had spent 11 years learning not to react. She had become very good at it. The judge entered. The bailiff called the court to order, and Marcus's attorney stood up and began the process of dismantling 11 years of marriage with the clinical efficiency of someone who had done this 100 times and found it not particularly interesting. Simone's hands were folded on the table in front of her. Her knuckles were white. Her face was still. Her eyes were fixed on the courtroom doors at the back of the room. Because the one thing Marcus did not know, the one variable he had not accounted for in all his careful planning, was the phone call Simone had made 3 days ago, to the one person she had sworn 11 years ago that she would never need to call again, her mother. What happened in that courtroom in the next 2 hours would be replayed in legal blogs and social media posts and law school discussions for years, not because of Marcus, because of what walked through those doors, and because of what it meant when it did. This is the story of Simone Caldwell, of what 11 years cost her, of the phone call she finally made, and of a mother's fury that no amount of money or legal strategy could withstand. Stay until the very end, because the courthouse steps are not the end of this story. What happens after is better. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you are watching from. We would love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Before the courtroom, and before the marriage, and before the 11 years that had reduced her to a woman in a second-hand dress sitting alone at a defense table, Simone Caldwell was the kind of woman who made things happen. Not the kind who talked about making things happen, the kind who actually did it. She had grown up in Charlotte, North Carolina, third of 4 daughters born to parents who had built their lives with the specific intentionality of people who understood that nothing was given and everything had to be earned and protected. Her father had been a high school history teacher for 31 years. He had coached the debate team. He had believed, with the evangelical conviction of someone who had seen the evidence in front of him, that the most powerful thing he could give his daughters was the ability to construct an argument that could not be dismantled. Simone had been his best student, not in school, in the kitchen, at dinner, in the car. He had argued with her about everything, not to win, but to teach her how to think, how to anticipate counter-arguments, how to find the weakness in someone else's reasoning before they found it themselves, how to stay calm when someone raised their voice, how to be more dangerous when she lowered hers. And then there was her mother, Vivienne Caldwell, a woman who occupied a different category from other people, had not because of her wealth, though the wealth was real and significant, and the result of 25 years of building something that had started as a two-person legal practice in a rented office on Trade Street in Charlotte and had grown into Caldwell and Associates, one of the most respected family law firms in the Southeast. Not because of her reputation, though the reputation was extensive and had been earned through cases that had been cited in appellate decisions and referenced in law school textbooks, because of the specific quality she brought to every room she entered, the quality of someone who had decided, at some point in her life, that she was not going to pretend to be less than she was for anyone's comfort, and had not pretended since. Simone had spent most of her life terrified of her mother, not of her cruelty, of her standards. Vivienne expected things, of herself, of her work, of her daughters, not perfection, precision. And Simone, who loved her deeply but had never quite felt adequate in her presence, had made a decision at 31. She was going to build a life that was entirely her own, not her mother's life, not her mother's version of success, hers. She had gone to New York after her marketing degree, had built a career at a brand strategy consultancy, had become genuinely excellent at something her mother knew nothing about, had met Marcus Holloway at a rooftop event in Soho when she was 32 and he was 35. He was charming in the way of men who have studied charm. He was successful in the way of men who value the appearance of success above its substance. He was, on every surface, impressive. And Simone, who was so determined to prove that she could choose her own life, had chosen him. Without calling her mother first, without asking for her mother's opinion, because she had been afraid of what her mother would see. Vivienne had come to the wedding. She had smiled at all the right moments. She had been gracious to Marcus's family. She had danced with Simone's father. After the ceremony, when Simone had gone to say goodnight, Vivienne had held her hands and said, quietly and without drama, "He is a man who needs to be the smartest person in the room. Make sure you always let him think he is." Simone had laughed. "Mama, not everything is a legal strategy." Vivienne had looked at her. "Everything is a legal strategy, baby. I'm just telling you which side of it you're on." She had not understood what her mother meant. And not for 8 years. By year 9, she had understood it completely. By year 10, she had been planning her exit. By year 11, she had made the call. The 11 years had not been dramatic. That was what made them so effective. Marcus Holloway was not the kind of man who announced his intentions. He was the kind who built conditions, slowly, patiently, with the specific methodology of someone who understood that what you control is not what you demand, but what you make someone believe they cannot survive without. The career had been first. He had not asked her to leave the consultancy. He had been more sophisticated than that. He had simply, across 18 months of persistent, apparently loving, apparently concerned conversation, made her career feel like the source of every problem in their marriage. The long hours, the travel, the clients, the stress. "You're giving your best to people who don't love you," he said. "I need you. We need this." She had believed him. She had left the consultancy. She had told herself she was choosing her marriage. She had been making the first of many choices that looked like freedom and were not. The friends had been second. Her college roommate Maya, her work friend Jessie, her cousin Renee. None of them removed dramatically. All of them, gradually, persistently with Marcus's gentle but consistent commentary, made to feel like threats. Maya is negative energy. She doesn't respect what we're building. Jessie talks too much about your personal life. I'm not comfortable with that. Renee has always been jealous of you. Don't you see it? One by one, over years, until the people who had known her before Marcus, who might have named what they were watching, were gone. And then the finances. Simone had brought assets into the marriage, savings from a decade of work, a retirement account, an investment portfolio her father had helped her build. Over the course of 11 years, through joint accounts, through decisions she had signed off on without fully reading, through the specific financial management of a man who controlled information as readily as he controlled everything else, most of it was gone. She would not understand exactly where until the forensic accountant got involved. But she had felt the thinning of it, the way you feel weather changing before you can see the clouds. The prenuptial agreement had been presented the night before the wedding, and at 10 o'clock in the evening, with the ceremony scheduled for 2 o'clock the following afternoon. Marcus had framed it as a formality. "My lawyer says we need this for insurance purposes. It protects us both. It's standard." She had been exhausted. Her dress was hanging in the closet. Her flowers had been delivered that afternoon. Every person she loved was already in Charlotte. She had signed. She had been 32 years old and in love, and had signed a document she had not had time to read properly. She would understand much later what she had signed away. The prenup established that any assets brought into the marriage remained separate property. What it did not establish, or rather, what it concealed in language Simone had not known to look for, was the classification of what Marcus called marital expenses. Through those marital expenses, across 11 years, Marcus had systematically transferred the marital assets, joint assets, assets she had contributed to, into structures that were his alone, companies she had not known about, accounts in her name that she had never accessed, a financial architecture of extraordinary precision, built over 11 years by a man who had been planning his exit almost since the beginning. She had found the other woman 8 months before the courtroom. Not dramatically, not through a confession, through a credit card statement she had stumbled on while looking for their tax documents. A hotel, a date she remembered clearly, because Marcus had told her he was in Chicago on that date for a client dinner. The hotel was in Charlotte, 20 minutes from their house. She had sat with that credit card statement for 3 days. Then she had called the one person she had sworn, 11 years ago, she would never need. The conversation had been short. "Mama, Simone, I need help." A pause, not of surprise, of someone who has been waiting for a specific call and has had their response ready for a very long time. "Tell me everything," Vivienne said. "Leave nothing out." Marcus had frozen her accounts 3 days before the hearing. Not because he needed to financially. He had more than enough money. He did it because he could, because he wanted her to walk into that courtroom knowing he had taken away every resource she might use to fight him. He had told his attorney it was a precautionary measure. His attorney had advised him to reconsider. Marcus had done it anyway, and because Marcus Holloway had spent 11 years in a marriage to a woman he had spent 11 years underestimating, and he had made the mistake of confusing her patience with incapacity. The courtroom was formal and high-ceilinged with the specific gravity of a space designed to communicate that what happened inside it was permanent. Judge Patricia Washington presided. She was 61 years old. She had been on the bench for 16 years. She was not known for warmth. She was known for precision, for efficiency, and for a very low tolerance for what she called courtroom theater. She had seen a great deal of courtroom theater. She had never sent anyone to jail for it. She had come close. The Marcus's attorney, a man named Gregory Vance, who had a wall of framed favorable settlements in his office and a reputation for making divorce proceedings feel like hostile acquisitions, stood at the plaintiff's table with the easy confidence of someone who had arranged this outcome in advance. He had arranged this outcome in advance. The prenup was solid. The financial disclosures, selective as they were, had been filed. The asset freeze was in place. The opposing party had no counsel. "We should be done by noon," he had told Marcus. "Judge Washington called the court to order." She looked at Simone. "Mrs. Holloway," she said, "the court notes you are without representation. Can you speak to that?" Simone stood. Her voice was calm. "My attorney is on her way, Your Honor. I apologize for the delay. There was an issue with... She should be here very shortly." Judge Washington looked at the clock. "We'll give it 5 minutes," she said. "The court's schedule is full." Marcus leaned over to Gregory. "She has no one coming," he said, his voice carrying the specific volume of a man who wants to be overheard. "She's buying time because she has nothing. She can't afford anyone. I made sure of that." Gregory placed a hand on his arm. "Marcus, I'm just saying what everyone is already thinking." Judge Washington's eyes moved to Marcus. Her expression did not change, but something in it sharpened. "Mr. Holloway," she said, "I'll ask you to conduct yourself appropriately in my courtroom." "Of course, Your Honor," Marcus said. "I apologize. This has been an extremely difficult process. My wife has made a number of accusations that are not supported by evidence. I simply want to resolve this as efficiently as possible." "That's what we're here for," Judge Washington said. She looked at the clock again. 1 minute, 2, 3. Simone's eyes were on the back of the courtroom, on the heavy wooden doors, on the line of light beneath them. 4 minutes. Marcus smiled, not at anyone in particular, just smiled. The smile of a man whose plan was working exactly as intended. "Your Honor," Gregory said, standing, "the defendant clearly does not have representation. We would respectfully move to proceed. She has had months to secure counsel. The court's time is valuable. The evidence is filed and comprehensive. I see no reason to delay further." Judge Washington looked at Simone. "Mrs. Holloway, I'm afraid." The doors opened. Not dramatically. Not thrown open. They were opened with the specific, deliberate care of someone who has decided that controlled entry is more powerful than dramatic entry. And the woman who walked through them walked slowly, as though she had all the time in the world, as though this courtroom had been waiting for her, and she had simply decided it was time to arrive. She wore white, a cream suit that fit her with the specific precision of something made for her body rather than selected from a rack. Her silver hair was cut close and sharp. Her posture was a statement. She carried a briefcase. Behind her walked 2 associates in dark suits, carrying additional briefcases, moving with the quiet synchronization of people who had done this before. Many times. Gregory Vance looked up from his papers. His pen stopped moving, and he looked at the woman. Something happened to his face that Marcus, watching his attorney's reaction, had never seen happen to Gregory Vance's face before. Fear. Actual fear. "Who is that?" Marcus whispered. Gregory did not answer immediately. He was staring. "Gregory, who is that woman?" "That," Gregory said slowly, his voice dropping to something barely audible, "is Vivienne Caldwell." Marcus blinked. "Who?" "Caldwell and Associates," Gregory said. "Out of Charlotte. She built one of the most successful family law practices in the Southeast over 25 years. She's argued appeals that changed state law." He paused. "She's never lost a case I know of." "So?" Marcus said. "She's just a lawyer. We have the prenup. We have the—" "Marcus," Gregory said, and his voice had changed in a way that Marcus did not like. "She's not just a lawyer." And Vivienne had reached the defense table. She set her briefcase down. She did not look at Marcus. She did not look at Gregory. She looked at her daughter. Simone looked up. Their eyes met. Something passed between them. Not warmth, not yet. Something more functional than warmth. Recognition. The recognition of 2 women who are on the same side of something. Vivienne placed her hand briefly on Simone's shoulder. Then she turned to face Judge Washington. "Your Honor," she said, "my apologies for the delay. I am Vivienne Caldwell of Caldwell and Associates in Charlotte. I am entering my appearance as counsel for the defendant, Mrs. Simone Holloway." She paused, then added without altering her tone, "I am also her mother." And the silence that followed was the kind that happens after something irreversible. Marcus's attorney recovered first. He was a professional. He had been in difficult hearings before. He stood up. "Your Honor, Gregory said, his voice professionally steady. While we welcome Mrs. Doctor, Vivienne said pleasantly, Juris Doctor, and I also hold an LLM in financial law from Georgetown. But Vivienne is fine. Gregory cleared his throat. While we welcome Ms. Caldwell's appearance, the defendant has had months to secure representation. The plaintiff's motion to proceed was filed appropriately. We would argue, you would argue, Vivienne said, opening her briefcase, that my client's inability to secure timely representation is her own failure. What you would not argue, because you know better, is that an inability caused by the deliberate freezing of every financial account in my client's name 3 days before this hearing is the kind of thing that tends to interest judges and disciplinary boards in equal measure. She placed a document on the table. I have filed an emergency motion this morning regarding the account freeze. It is Exhibit A. She looked at Judge Washington. I have also, over the past 72 hours, been reviewing the financial disclosures filed by the plaintiff. They are incomplete. Significantly so. Gregory was very still. Your Honor, Vivienne continued, her voice the specific calm of someone who has more information than anyone else in the room and knows it. My son-in-law has represented to this court that his net worth is approximately $4.2 million in disclosed assets, primarily real estate and standard investment accounts. She paused. Let that number sit. He has not disclosed 2 LLCs registered in Delaware. She placed another document on the table. He has not disclosed a business account holding approximately $800,000 in funds transferred from the marital business account over the past 3 years. Another document. He has not disclosed a retirement account opened in the state of Georgia 4 years ago. Another document. And he has not disclosed... She paused, allowing the pause to do its work. The property purchased 14 months ago in a private cash transaction. A property which my forensic accountant, who has been working since yesterday morning, had traced through the LLC structure to my son-in-law's sole ownership. The documents landed on Gregory's table one by one, each one a separate weight. Gregory was reading. His face had gone through several adjustments in the past 3 minutes and was now arriving at an expression Simone had never seen on a man that confident before. Concern. Real, functional, professional concern. How? Marcus began. He stopped himself. Vivienne looked at him for the first time. She had her daughter's eyes. Or rather, Simone had hers. The specific quality of eyes that do not miss things. Mr. Holloway, Vivienne said. Her voice was pleasantly conversational. My daughter called me 3 days ago. In those 3 days, my team has reviewed every financial document, every filing, every LLC registration, every property record, and every wire transfer we could access through legal means. She tilted her head slightly. You would be surprised what is legally accessible when you know where to look. You had 3 days, Marcus said. 3 days and you found all of... I had 25 years of practice, Vivienne replied, and 3 days. The 25 years did most of the work. Judge Washington was reading the documents that her clerk had brought to the bench. The courtroom was very quiet. The only sound was the turning of pages, and then the judge looked up. Mr. Vance, she said. Her voice was careful in the way of someone choosing words to match a specific legal weight. Were you aware of these undisclosed assets? Gregory stood. Your Honor, my client provided me with his financial disclosures, and I am asking you a specific question, the judge said. Were you aware? No, Your Honor, Gregory said. I was not. He did not look at Marcus when he said it. That was the moment Simone understood that Gregory Vance had just made a decision about which side of this hearing he needed to be on. Not Marcus's side, his own. Judge Washington requested a brief recess. 30 minutes, during which Gregory Vance had a conversation with Marcus Holloway that Simone could not hear but could read entirely from Marcus's changing expression. The confidence first, then the argument, then the realization. then something she had never seen on his face in 11 years of marriage: fear. She watched him experience it from across the room. She felt, she would think about this later, nothing she had expected to feel, not triumph, not satisfaction, something quieter. And the specific feeling of a woman who has been told for 11 years that she is less than she is, watching the evidence dissolve the lie. Vivienne sat beside her during the recess. They did not speak immediately. After a moment, Simone said, "You found all of that in 3 days." "My forensic accountant did," Vivienne said. "I directed him. There's a difference." "How did you know where to look?" Vivienne looked at her daughter. "Because I have spent 25 years watching men like Marcus Holloway," she said. "And they all hide money the same way. The structure is always the same. LLCs in states with minimal disclosure requirements, cash transactions for property, business accounts that technically belong to the business but functionally belong to them." A pause. "And they all believe that because they built the system carefully, then no one will find it." What do they forget? That someone who has been dismantling those systems for 25 years can see the architecture without having to excavate it. Simone looked at her hands. "I should have called you sooner." Vivienne was quiet for a moment. "Yes," she said, "you should have." She did not soften the answer. This was what Simone had always found difficult about her mother. This was also what she had needed. "I was afraid of what you would see," Simone said. "What did you think I would see? Someone who made a mistake, who chose the wrong man, who needed rescuing." Vivienne looked at her daughter. "I see a woman who survived 11 years with someone who was systematically taking things from her," she said, "and who is now sitting in a courtroom with every reason to give up and is not giving up." A pause. "And that is not someone who needs rescuing. That is someone who needed backup." Court reconvened. Judge Washington returned to the bench. She looked at both tables. "Given the significant questions raised by the documents filed this morning," she said, "I am suspending the original hearing agenda and opening a preliminary inquiry into the financial disclosures. Mr. Holloway, you will take the stand." Marcus stood. He had adjusted something in his expression during the recess. He had put the confidence back, or a version of it. The version that was performing confidence rather than feeling it. Simone watched him walk to the stand. She watched him raise his hand. She watched him swear to tell the truth. She thought about the 11 years. The prenup signed at 10 o'clock the night before her wedding. And the accounts she had not been told about. The property she had not known existed. The woman in the Charlotte hotel. She thought about all of it. She was ready to hear what came next. Vivienne stood. She did not bring notes. She had not needed notes in 22 years. "Mr. Holloway," she said. Her voice was conversational. Warm, almost. "I appreciate your willingness to testify. I'd like to start simply. You have been married to my daughter for 11 years, correct?" "Yes." "During those 11 years, did she contribute financially to the household?" "Yes. Early on, before she stopped working." "She stopped working," Vivienne repeated. "Why did she stop?" "She chose to," Marcus said. "She wanted to be at home." "She chose to," Vivienne said. "Can you tell the court what preceded that choice?" "Specifically, and the conversations the two of you had about her career between year 2 and year 3 of the marriage?" Marcus blinked. "I supported her. I encouraged her. You encouraged her to leave. I encouraged her to consider what was important to her. By expressing concern about her job. Repeatedly. Over 18 months. I was worried about her stress levels." "Of course," Vivienne said. "How thoughtful." She moved forward. "Mr. Holloway, I am looking at your financial disclosure filed with this court. You have declared assets of $4.2 million. Is that accurate?" "Yes." "Then can you explain," Vivienne said, placing a document before him, "the Delaware registration of a company called Holloway Capital Group, LLC, registered 4 years ago?" Marcus looked at the document. His expression did not change dramatically, but something behind it did. And that is a business entity. Yes. Can you tell the court what that entity holds? Business assets. Business assets, Vivienne repeated. Would those business assets include the $840,000 transferred from your marital business account over the past 3 years? That was for business investment. Investment in what? Various projects. Can you name one? A pause. The portfolio is complex. I see, Vivienne said. She placed another document. What about this property? A 4-bedroom house purchased 14 months ago in cash. Registered to Holloway Capital Group. Can you tell the court who occupies that property? Marcus looked at Gregory. Gregory was looking at his hands. It is a rental property, Marcus said. A rental property, Vivienne said. Can you provide the name of the tenant? Another pause. Longer this time. It is currently between tenants. Is it? Vivienne said. She placed a third document. Because according to the utility accounts for that property, which are paid by a credit card in your name, there has been continuous occupancy for the past 11 months. She looked at him directly. Who is living in that house, Mr. Holloway? The courtroom was very quiet. Judge Washington was watching Marcus. Marcus was looking at a document he had not known existed 3 hours ago. There is an individual who has been staying there on a temporary basis. A friend? Yes. A close friend? A pause. Yes. Mr. Holloway, Vivienne said, her voice dropping slightly in the interest of efficiency. I want to tell you that I have a significant number of additional documents. Bank statements, wire transfers, phone records, a property deed your name appears on in another state. She looked at him steadily. I am going to ask you to make a choice right now, in this courtroom, in front of Judge Washington. You can continue to describe everything as an investment or a business expense or a temporary arrangement, or you can decide to be honest. Both paths lead to the same place, but one is considerably shorter. Marcus looked at her. He had spent 11 years reading Simone as a woman who would not fight back. He had been reading the wrong Caldwell. He looked at Gregory. Gregory gave the smallest, most infinitesimal shake of his head. The shake that meant, I cannot help you. Do not look at me. Marcus looked at Judge Washington. And the judge was watching him with the expression of someone who has heard all the possible answers and is simply waiting for him to choose which one he will use. He looked at Simone. Simone was looking at him calmly, without anger, without triumph, with the specific expression of a woman who is finally watching the truth exist in the light. Marcus Holloway looked at his hands. I would like to speak with my attorney, he said. Your attorney is present, Judge Washington said. I would like a brief recess. Judge Washington looked at Vivienne. Opposing counsel. We are prepared to continue, Vivienne said, but we have no objection to a brief recess if the court wishes to grant one. The judge granted 10 minutes. Gregory Vance spent those 10 minutes doing something Simone had watched Gregory do from across the room with great interest. He spent them not speaking to Marcus. He spent them on his phone, making his own calls, preparing his own next steps, which would turn out to be, by the end of the week, full cooperation with the court's financial inquiry, in exchange for not being named in the disciplinary filing. The hearing reconvened. Gregory Vance stood. Your Honor, he said, my client is prepared to amend his financial disclosure. Vivienne sat back in her chair. She did not smile. She had known this was coming since she had walked through the doors. Your Honor, Gregory continued, Mr. Holloway wishes to revise his declared assets to more accurately reflect his financial position. The revised number, when it was read into the record, was more than 3 times the original disclosure. Marcus sat at the plaintiff's table. But he looked like a man sitting inside the wreckage of something he had built very carefully for a very long time. Simone sat at the defense table. She looked like a woman breathing for the first time in 11 years. Judge Washington did not rush. She had never rushed. She gathered the documents before her with the methodical attention of someone who understood that what she was about to say would follow these two people for the rest of their lives and deserved the weight of full consideration. "Mr. Holloway," she began. Her voice had the specific quality of a judge who has made her decision and is now explaining it, not deliberating. "You appeared in this court this morning with the apparent belief that you had arranged circumstances so thoroughly in your favor that this hearing would be, in your own words, and you should know that comments made in this courtroom are part of the record, a matter of 20 minutes. She looked at him. "I want you to understand something. This court has been here for all the hours it has taken today. We will be here for all the hours it takes to resolve what your financial disclosure has now revealed. There is no version of this where you leave quickly." She turned to her documents. "Effective immediately, I am granting the defendant's emergency motion regarding the account freeze. All accounts in Mrs. Holloway's name are unfrozen. All accounts in Mr. Holloway's name, including all LLCs identified in today's proceedings, are subject to a court-ordered freeze pending a full forensic audit." Gregory nodded. He had expected this. Regarding the prenuptial agreement, the judge continued, "I am referring it for a hearing on validity, given the circumstances of its signing as described in the defendant's testimony and the affidavit filed this morning. Specifically, the question of whether an agreement signed less than 24 hours before a wedding without independent legal counsel for the signing party meets the standards of informed consent in this jurisdiction." Marcus's jaw tightened. "The court is also referring this matter to the State Bar's Disciplinary Committee for review of Mr. Holloway's counsel's role in the financial disclosure process. Mr. Vance, you are not being accused of anything at this time, but the committee will want to speak with you." Gregory nodded again, quickly. Finally, Judge Washington said, "I want to address what happened in this courtroom this morning before Mrs. Caldwell arrived," as she looked at Marcus. "You made comments about your wife in open court that were designed to humiliate her. You spoke loudly enough to ensure she and others heard. You compared the situation to, and I am reading directly from the court reporter's transcript, you compared the situation to something that would take 20 minutes and leave you free." She removed her glasses, set them down. Mrs. Holloway sat at that table without counsel, without financial resources, and without anything you had not deliberately taken from her. She sat with dignity. She spoke with dignity. She has conducted herself throughout these proceedings with dignity. She looked at Simone. "The court sees that, Mrs. Holloway." Simone pressed her lips together. She did not cry. Not then. She would cry later, in the car, with her mother's hand on her arm. But not then. "Court is adjourned," Judge Washington said. "We will reconvene for the full hearing in 3 weeks. Counsel, I expect complete cooperation with the forensic audit." The gavel came down. The courthouse steps were broad and stone and caught the afternoon sun in the way of civic buildings designed to look permanent. Simone stood on them with Vivienne beside her. Marcus had left through a side door. With Gregory, who was already on his phone with the composure of a man who was handling his own situation. The two associates who had arrived with Vivienne were waiting at the bottom of the steps with a car. Simone looked at the street, at the city going about its afternoon as if nothing had happened inside that building. "He's going to fight this," she said. "Yes," Vivienne said. "It's going to take time." "Yes. Are you going to stay?" Simone asked. "For the full hearing." Vivienne looked at her daughter. "Do you want me to?" Simone thought about 11 years, about the woman she had been before them, about the woman she had been learning to become again in the past 8 months of planning, about the phone call 3 days ago and everything that had followed. "Yes," she said. "I want you to." Vivienne nodded. "Then I'm staying." They stood together on the courthouse steps, not hugging, not performing reconciliation, just standing, side by side, like two women on the same side of something, which was, Simone realized, what they had always been. She had just needed 11 years and a courtroom to understand it. Her phone buzzed. A text from Maya, her college roommate. The friend Marcus had called negative energy. I just saw the court news feed. Are you okay? And can I call? Simone looked at the text. She had not spoken to Maya in 3 years. Marcus had been very effective. She typed back, "Call me. I have a lot to catch up you on." Then she put the phone in her pocket. She looked at her mother. "You said that morning, on my wedding day. You said he needed to be the smartest person in the room. I remember. I thought you were being critical of him." "I was," Vivienne said. "But you were also warning me." Vivienne looked at the street. "I was hoping you would hear it as a warning," she said. "I was afraid that if I said it directly, you would shut me out." "I would have," Simone admitted. "I know. You let me make the mistake." "You were 32, Vivienne said. "You were going to make it regardless. The question was whether you would know you could call me when it was time. And you waited." "For 11 years, Vivienne said. "Yes." Simone looked at her mother, at this woman who had built something from nothing and had watched her daughter walk away from it and had waited. For 11 years, without withdrawing, without conditions, just available. "I'm sorry it took so long," Simone said. "It took exactly as long as it needed to," Vivienne said. "You called, that's what matters." The full hearing took 4 months. The forensic audit took 8 weeks. The final total of Marcus's disclosed and undisclosed assets was significantly higher than even Vivienne's initial documentation had suggested. The prenuptial agreement was voided. The court found that it had been signed under conditions that did not meet the standard of informed, independent consent. And the property settlement reflected 11 years of Simone's direct and indirect contributions to the marriage. The house in Atlanta, the house Marcus had told her she would never be able to afford on her own, was hers. Marcus received a separate investigation from the IRS into the LLCs. Gregory Vance voluntarily withdrew from his firm during the disciplinary review. He was ultimately not disbarred. He was, for some time, very careful. 6 months after the hearing, Simone sat in the house in Atlanta, in what had been Marcus's study, which she had converted into a workspace for the consulting practice she was relaunching, her own practice, her own name on it. The window faced east. The morning light came in the way of east-facing windows that have been positioned to make work feel like something worth waking up for. Aunt Vivienne called at 8, as she did most mornings now, not always for long conversations, sometimes just to check in, sometimes just to say, "Are you okay?" "Yes," Simone would say. "Good," Vivienne would say, and that would be enough. Maya had come back into her life 3 weeks after the courthouse. Jessie had come back 2 weeks after that. Renee, her cousin, had texted the morning the settlement was finalized. "I always knew," Renee had written. "I was waiting for you to be ready." Simone had called her back. They had talked for 3 hours. The conversations were easy in the way of people who have known each other long enough that the gap in time does not require extensive explanation. They simply picked up from where they had been before Marcus had described them as threats. The consulting practice launched on a Monday in October. Our 3 clients in the first week, 2 referrals from Vivienne's professional network, 1 from Maya. The work was the best she had done. She knew it. You could tell from the work itself, the specific quality of something made by someone who is no longer seeking anyone's approval. One evening, a year after the courtroom, Simone sat on the back porch of the house that was now hers. She was reading. The kind of reading that was not goal-oriented, not for work, not for research, just for the pleasure of it. A pleasure she had not allowed herself in years. Because Marcus had always had opinions about how she spent her evenings. The neighborhood was quiet. The October air was cool enough to require a sweater. She thought about the courtroom, about the gray dress, about the white knuckles, about the doors opening, and about her mother walking through them. She thought about what her father had said when she had called him after the hearing. He had listened to the full account. Then he said, "Your mother spent 25 years preparing to walk through those doors." "What do you mean?" "Every case she won, every skill she built, every dollar she earned. She built it for this. For the moment one of her daughters needed it." A pause. "She just had to wait for you to call." Simone had cried on that call. The good kind. The kind that releases rather than drains. She sat on the porch now and thought about her father's words, about preparation and patience and the specific kind of love that waits. Her phone buzzed. A text from Vivienne. "Dinner Sunday? I found a recipe your grandmother used to make. I've been trying to remember it for 40 years. She smiled. I typed back, "Sunday. I'll bring the wine." She put down the phone. She picked up her book. She read. In the house that was hers. In the evening that was hers. In the life that was finally, completely, specifically hers. Marcus Holloway walked into that courtroom believing he had arranged every variable. He had frozen the accounts. He had the attorney. He had the prenup. He had the public humiliation. The comment about 20 minutes. The smile while his wife sat alone. He had thought of everything. He had not thought of the phone call 3 days earlier. He had not thought that the woman he had spent 11 years reducing was connected, by blood, to a woman who had spent 25 years building the exact tools required to dismantle what he had built. He had confused Simone's patience with incapacity, and her silence with surrender, her stillness with weakness. He had made the oldest mistake that certain men make. He had looked at a woman who was not fighting and concluded she had nothing to fight with. He had not considered that she might simply be waiting. Vivienne Caldwell spent 25 years building something. Not specifically for a courtroom in Atlanta, but it was ready when it was needed. That is the thing about certain kinds of preparation. It does not know what it is building toward. It simply keeps building. And when the moment comes, it is there. If this story moved you, hit the like button. Leave a comment telling me where you are watching from and whether you have ever had someone show up for you at exactly the moment you needed them. Or whether you have been the one who showed up. I want to hear from you. Share this with someone who needs to hear that silence is not defeat, that patience is not weakness, that the most powerful thing a woman can do sometimes is make one phone call. To the right person, at the right time. Subscribe with notifications on. Every week I bring you stories of women who held their ground and found, when it mattered, that they had not been standing alone. I will see you in the next one.